Welcome to the screencast for Caring and Epistemic Demands by Linda Zagzebski. This starts on page 69 in our textbook. And if you're flipping through the textbook, you might notice that this starts a new section, a new topic in philosophy. We're on part 3 now, so we're really chugging along. We had part 1, the introduction, part 2, reasoning, and now part 3, knowledge, or epistemology. So remember, epistemology is the study of knowledge itself. And I have a quote here from the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, the resource that I had recommended to you a couple of screencasts ago. And this is their introduction to it. Defined narrowly, epistemology is the study of knowledge and justified belief. As the study of knowledge, epistemology is concerned with the following questions. What are the necessary and sufficient conditions of knowledge? What are its sources? What's its structure? And what are its limits? As the study of justified belief, epistemology aims to answer questions such as, how are we to understand the concept of justification? What makes justified beliefs justified? Is justification internal or external to one's own mind? Understood more broadly, epistemology is about issues having to do with the creation and dissemination of knowledge in particular areas of inquiry. Okay, so that's a lot, right? When we talk about justification, we mean, how do we know if we should believe that something is true or not? What counts as good evidence and what doesn't? And you can look at that on a lot of different levels, from really specific ones to more general ones. What counts as knowledge? Is it something that's bigger than just having a true belief or a justified belief? And we're going to take a look in the next couple of articles and see the most basic outlines of the way philosophers study this. And that brings us to the article of the day, Caring and Epistemic Demands. So Zagzebski is going to make an argument that just the way we are as human beings demands that we look for truth. Excuse me. And she makes a pretty good argument, but there are ways to disagree. So when we pay attention to the conclusion and the evidence chain that leads up to that conclusion, you can weigh the evidence for yourself and decide whether or not it's enough to accept her conclusion. So what she says is, from the small things to the large things, we are a species that cares. So the small, you care about the taste of your food. You might have a favorite color. You might spend a lot of time watching sports or playing video games. And again, when I use the phrases small to large, I don't mean it in a way to say that the smaller things don't matter. They are just smaller domains. Whereas a larger domain would be something that more people cared about, a larger percentage of the human population. But aside from all of that, we all care about something. We care about our families. We care about our futures. We care about our pets or our friends, our hobbies, our goals. We place value on the outcomes of our actions, right? And Zagzebski says that if we didn't care about anything, life really wouldn't be worth living. It wouldn't have any meaning if we didn't care about specific domains. And whenever we talk about a domain in this article, those are the kinds of things that I mean. If I'm a parent, I care about the domain of parenting. And specifically, I care about my own child and my child's welfare. And that's another even smaller domain. So she says, then because we care, we are forced to also care about having true beliefs in that domain, not in general. But if you care about your child, which most of us do, then we care about having true beliefs both about our child and about parenting. So we want to know true beliefs about our child. So are they hungry? Are they feeling ill? What makes them happy? How do I shape them into a person that will contribute to the world and be happy? So if you care about football, you have to care about knowing about the actual rules of football. If you care about becoming financially stable, you must have true beliefs about how it's possible to do that. So even if we never have perfect beliefs, if we care about something, we'll always seek true beliefs about that subject. So Zagzebski defines this, and she says that any belief that you have that's concerned with the truth of that belief, she calls it a conscientious belief. And then she says there are two ways that caring in this way imposes demands on us, epistemic demands. And what that means is demands about our knowledge. So caring imposes demands on our knowledge. So she says caring demands us to be conscientious in the beliefs that we already have in that domain. So we want to make sure the ones we are already holding as true actually are true. And then she thinks that caring also demands that you acquire new beliefs in that domain. She says, yes, the first is probably stronger than the second. And you might wonder why. Let's see here. She says on page 69, the first demand is no doubt stronger than the second because our ability to care probably extends beyond our ability to form beliefs. Although our inability to form beliefs in some domain probably limits our ability to care. So she thinks that if we can't really form a belief just because we don't have enough information, we will perhaps care less about that specific domain. So she has the example of a natural disaster. So if a flood or a fire or an earthquake happens thousands of miles from us, we're going to care about the class of people that were affected by it. So everybody that was affected by it. But since it's so many people and it's so far away, we're going to have a really hard time forming specific beliefs about specific people. And she thinks that will limit our ability to care. The more beliefs that we can get, so maybe that's part of the reason why newscasters and journalists try to put a human face on things, is because you're more likely to care when you have more information and more specific information. And so there's that caveat to her second point here, that caring about something demands that you acquire conscientious beliefs. She also puts a couple other qualifications on there. Sometimes our domains conflict. So if we care about a person as a friend, and if caring about them demands that we get more true beliefs about them, we should always be digging and digging and digging, but that's not true. We also have a concern in the domain of privacy. We are not going to find out whatever it is that they consider private, whether it's their sex life or their health records or really whatever it is they want to keep private. So there's a conflicting push there. And in that case, you might not want to get more beliefs about, even if they're conscientious, about your friends. And other times that the desire to acquire new beliefs can be counterproductive. She gives the example of health and healthcare. Everybody is likely to want to be healthy, but sometimes if you're at home and you're Googling whatever your symptoms are, learning more and more. You might get panicked, you might get overwhelmed, and new beliefs or the desire to acquire them might be counterproductive in that instance. But with those caveats, she moves on and tells us why she thinks acquiring conscientious beliefs matters. And the first thing, of course, is if we want to act in the domains we care about, having true beliefs are crucial. So go back to that example of parenting. You're forced to act when you raise a child. You have to make choices in regard to their lives. So we're always going to be actors or agents in the domains we care about. And if we have better beliefs, we will act better. We all know that we have false beliefs, right? That's another reason that having conscientious beliefs matters, says Zagzebski. We know that sometimes our beliefs contradict, so one of them has to be right and one of them has to be wrong. We know we make mistakes because we have incomplete knowledge about a situation, and we know we make mistakes because of incorrect knowledge about a situation. So we want to be able to tell the false beliefs from the true ones. She has a little thought experiment, and I have not used that phrase yet, but I will a lot in the upcoming screencast. What a thought experiment is trying to highlight a specific point of logic or reasoning by using an imaginary scenario or metaphor. A lot of times the thought experiment will have a fantastical or ridiculous backstory, but all that you really need to pay attention to is the logical point that it's trying to make, and if the scenario is possible or not realistic. I guess possible. You don't have to worry too much about that definition at the moment. I'll come back to it later on in the semester. For now, her thought experiment is imagining that you're panning for gold, and you know that the cave or the river where you are has equal parts real gold and fool's gold, or what is it, pyrite. And you're not sure which is which, so you have to find a way to distinguish the real gold from the false gold, because it diminishes the value of all of your beliefs if you can't figure out what you're right about and what you're wrong about. We also want to participate in communities of belief. So give and receive knowledge from other people who have had other experiences, whether it's our hobby or something larger like parenting. So we have to be good informants to others. Now Zagzebski talks about the 3 kinds of trust we need if we want to participate in this idea of conscientious belief seeking. And she says it requires 3 kinds of trust: self-trust, epistemic trust in others, and epistemic trust from others. So you need to be able to trust yourself to be a truth seeker. You have to develop good habits surrounding your beliefs. You can rely more on yourself when you choose your actions. And these habits include being careful, being thorough, and seeking and evaluating evidence, being open-minded, and listening to contrary views. So that's self-trust. You also need trust in others. We all have limited time, and we can't learn about every subject in the world, but other people with other focuses can take the time to learn things and then convey them to you. So you need to be able to trust other people are also conscientious truth seekers. You never know for sure if they have the same standards as you, But if you shut everybody's expertise out, you're going to drastically narrow the pool of things you will have the time to gather new evidence on. You'd be very detached. And now the last kind of trust, she says, is necessary. It's trust from others. So she gives us the story of Cassandra. And this is a myth from Greek legend. And the god Apollo gave her the gift of prophecy, or the ability to see the future. But then she spurned him. She decided she didn't want to be with him anymore. And he punished her by letting her keep the prophecy so she could still see the future. But no one believed her, ever. No matter what she said or how she said it, when she said it, everybody thought she was lying 100% of the time. And I think it's really hard to imagine the kinds of isolation you would feel if every time you opened your mouth, people rolled their eyes and walked away. She says you would be so isolated that you'd probably be isolated in every other way as well, not just in gaining knowledge, but in all the other ways that you can connect on a human level. So now we come to her final argument, and she thinks that this idea that conscientious beliefs are a motivating factor in a good life, then you need to have a certain set of epistemic values. So let's break that down. We know that epistemic means knowledge related, and how we get it, what it is. And we know that values means the way we ought to be, or the way the world ought to be. So all it means, that phrase, is that if you have epistemic values, you're going to have a certain set of principles as to how you should acquire knowledge. And she thinks those are this truth seeking, where we're always going to conscientiously seek truth. And remember, there are lots of ways to do that, including being careful, being thorough, always seeking evidence, being open-minded, trusting in self and others. There's also going to be admitting error. That's an intellectual epistemic value. Realizing your own fallibility and how no matter how much evidence you get, none of your beliefs are ever going to be 100% certain. And also finding the value in prediction. So if our beliefs show us that something similar will happen in the future, then they are part of our truth seeking. So this is like science, right? We understand the mechanism of something, so we'll understand how it will work in the future. So you don't even need it to be scientific. You have enough experience and you know that tomorrow the sun is going to rise. And that is a prediction from our true beliefs. So Zagzebski's main conclusion is that caring places demands on us to hold these values about knowledge. And I want you to think about whether or not you think she's correct.